Tonight on this episode of From the Bayou to the World, we're going to need some air because we're smothering everything. Pork chops, potatoes, with sausage. We're going to show you how to do it all. Come on in. Coffee's on. Oh, this one's going to be good. Hey, y'all. Come on in. Welcome to the Bayou, From the Bayou to the World. I'm Kurt. This is my kitchen. Come in and have a seat. We're doing smothered tonight. Smothered pork chops, which is a traditional Cajun dish, normally served over rice, but it is also served over smothered potatoes, which is another traditional Cajun dish. Smothered potatoes and sausage, one of the starch staples that Cajuns and Creole people have lived on for centuries. It provides a lot. It tastes fantastic. It uses smoked sausage. Potatoes are always plentiful. And it's another starch ingredient that fills your belly without emptying your wallet too much. As for smothered pork chops, pork was always readily available. Most families raised their own way back. Now, of course, pork's everywhere. But you got to be careful about what kind of pork you're getting. And before I get into that, I need to thank our sponsors, Gilbert's Greatest Foods Makers of Louisiana Love. If you're not cooking with Louisiana Love, your smothered pork chops, they ain't going to be up to snuff. So listen, there's a lot of, when you go to the butcher counter, there's a lot of stuff, right? There's all kind of cuts of pork wrapped and all this stuff. So what you want is something that has a lot of fat in it. A center cut pork chop, that's not what you want for this. Because a center cut pork chop comes from the loin, the tenderloin of the pig. And you notice when you look at it, there's no what we call intramuscular fat. This is what we want. This is called a blade chop or a sirloin chop. And you can see it's just streaked with fat, intramuscular fat. That's what we want. This particular pork came from a 4-H group. So you'll see these from time to time in neighborhoods. 4-H young people will raise their own animals, and then they'll sell them. They show them, and they show them for prizes, see who did the best, and of course they're sold for slaughter. And I was given the opportunity to buy some of this, and not only help the 4-H associate this 4-H group at our local school, but it's some fantastic pork. They put a lot of care into these animals, lamb and all the rest of it. So if you have the opportunity, do yourself a favor. Support your local school and your local 4-H, and get you some fantastic protein at the same time. So you've seen our episode, I'm sure, right, on brown gravy. This is a variation of that, and there are a lot of variations of that in Cajun and Creole food because it was one of those dishes that doesn't have to be babysat. Once you got it going, you put it on low, like we say, we put it on drink. And then you went do other stuff, work, or maybe just sat down and relaxed a little bit. You didn't have to tend to it too much. So you had this dark, rich brown gravy. Onions and garlic are always staple. You see bell pepper too. I'm not a bell pepper fan. You could use poblano peppers. You could use banana peppers. You could use anything you want, really. But I like onions and garlic. It's just fine with me. Smothered potatoes. Smothered potatoes, I don't know where the dish originates from. I would have to say that it would be some sort of Irish influence way back. New Orleans, being the port city that it is, had such an influx of all nationalities. I'm sure it's made its way. Potatoes grow fantastically everywhere on the planet except for the poles. And they provide so much. There's so much here in one potato. It was just a natural occurrence that you were going to smother them. And again, a dish that you didn't have to babysit too much once it got going. But towards the end, you do have to kind of watch it because it will start to stick and brown, and that's what we want, but you don't want it to burn. There's a lot of sugar in potatoes, and it's not the sweet kind of sugar. But it is a sugar nonetheless, and it is subject to the Maillard reaction when placed on the heat. So that's why potatoes brown so well. It's also why they stick. Well, there's the starches. So when you marry something bland like a potato with our wonderful Cajun spices and some fantastic smoked sausage, you have a meal that basically sits on its own. And then when you put something like a beautiful pork chop gravy on top of that, well, it's nothing short of heaven. So it's fantastic. So that's the focus of the show tonight. We're going to do a few things different. We'll introduce a couple different ingredients and a couple different techniques. And I have 3 pots on my stove. And the third one I'm not telling you about right now because you're going to have to hang around. It's a surprise. So come on back in a little bit. We're going to get this cleared up. We'll start browning off our pork chops, and we'll get our potatoes going because they need a little time too, and we'll talk about that. See you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to From the Bayou to the World. I'm Kurt. Hey, we are smothering pork chops and potatoes with sausage, right? So we talked about the type of pork chops you need and what you could look for in the first segment, but I have the pot back here, and it's on, so we need to get these pork chops in here. So remember, we always talk about we want to warm our pot, right? We're going to get it on a nice medium fire, low fire for a while, bring it up, and you hear that sound? I'm going to put my mic close. You hear that sound? That's the sound you want. You're not frying these things. You're browning them, okay? If it starts popping and hissing and fussing and cussing and splattering grease all over creation, your fire's too hot. Turn it down a little bit. We're gonna let that. I'm not gonna pay attention to that for a while because it needs to sit there and do what it's doing. We're gonna come back right here to the cutting board, and we're gonna talk about potatoes. I'm using russet potatoes. You could use red potatoes. You could use Yukon Gold potatoes. You could use almost any kind of potato you want. I've never used purple potatoes, but I'd love to because I do enjoy those very much. So why russets? This is just what I picked up. They look the best in the store, and they're also, in my opinion, the easiest to peel. So what you look for in a potato, nice and firm. They're always going to be dirty. I really don't like buying the bags of the 5-pound bags of them because you don't know what's inside, right? So nice, even consistent. You want them. You don't want any bumps or bruises or black spots in them, and you don't want them to be green. If you're looking at the skin and you see a hue of green, it's old. It's getting ready to sprout. And see how that's nice and white? Yeah. So if they're green, the starches are starting to crystallize inside the potato. And no matter how long you cook it, it's going to be grainy. It's going to be grainy. So that's how if you're eating somewhere and those potatoes are grainy, they were old. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a texture issue. I like them just like this. Potatoes are cheap enough. I don't have to hang on to old potatoes, you know. So yeah, this is called a Y peeler. You know why? Because it's shaped like a Y. That's why. So just like that, real easy. So when you're smothering potatoes, you want to brown them. But before you want to brown them, they are very, very hard. I need to break them down first. So the way I do that is I use water. I'm going to put the potato, I have a little bit of oil in that pot back there, the one on your right, the back right. And I'm going to put these potatoes in there after I cut them. And there, see that black right there? Peel that off. I'm going to let them sit for just a little while, about 3 or 4 minutes. Then I'm going to start to introduce water in there. And the reason why, so Kurt, you've talked before about when you're trying to brown something, water's not your friend. That is correct, and it's 100% right. The reason why I'm doing that is because I need the potatoes to break down. I need all those starches available for browning. And there is nothing more effective in cooking than steam for tenderizing. Steam. If you've ever burnt yourself with steam, you know, Jesus, it is just, because steam penetrates, when you burn yourself, or steam goes beyond the surface and gets in there and it heats up everything around it, all the available water and oil around it. It gets incredibly hot, incredibly fast. So we're going to use that to our advantage. Cutting potatoes. I cut them in half. I cut the halves in halves again, make quarters. And you want to cut them across. Now, if I want to break these down, it stands to reason that the smaller I cut them, the faster they'll cook. And that's right. But I also want some texture. I don't want mush. I want nice soft potatoes. I want smothered potatoes. And I do want some, we're going to call it gravy for lack of a better term. But I want some pieces of soft potato in there. So I'm not going to cut them too small. Just like that. That's fine. That's all I want. I'm not going to sit there and dice them up into little old tiny things. And besides, like I just said, the steam is going to be our friend. The steam is going to help us break them down quickly. Russets are starchier. They're going to brown better. Red potatoes are more what they call a waxy potato. They don't have as much starch. It's going to take a little bit longer for them to brown. However, a lot of people prefer the flavor of a red potato to a russet potato. And I would not disagree. But we're going to use russets tonight. All right. Got our pot. Whoop, the one that got away. Put up it. Well, I'll be known. So just in a pot with a little bit of oil, and like I said, we're gonna let them. I'm gonna put them back on the fire, and we're gonna let them hang out for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're gonna start introducing some water, and we could put our onions straight away in there also, but not the garlic, not yet. Right back on the fire, and a good medium heat, nothing crazy. You don't want to go too nuts on this. Lid on. Why lid on? Lid on because I want to capture all that steam. I want to capture everything that's going to come out. That's what I want. And while I'm talking here, our pork chops are just sizzling away. Matt, come take a look at this. So you see all that what you want to call blood? Not really blood, but that's beauty. That's what that is. Look at that, boy. That's beautiful, beautiful. That cupping, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. What you could do is make some cuts on the edges right here. That does relieve some of the tension, but it doesn't always work. But it doesn't matter. We're gonna let that sit right there and do its thing. So we have our potatoes going. We have our mystery pot in the middle. We got our pork chops browning up so beautifully. Our potatoes are peeled. When we come back, we're gonna cut up our onions. We're gonna talk more about the browning process of potatoes. Start building our gravy, because we need to add onions to our pork chops and also to our potatoes. And we're going to talk about the sausage. I usually use this in one way, but I'm not going to use it in that way because we have it in another dish. I'll explain it when you come back. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Welcome back to From the Bayou to the World. Lord, it is smelling good in here. So we have our potatoes in the pot. Excuse me. We let them sit for like 3 or 4 minutes in the oil. And now we've introduced about a half to 3/4 cup of water. And it kind of looks like soup right now, but that's okay. That's what we want. We want that steam to break those potatoes down for us so they can start to brown. We need those starches to release from the potatoes so they can kind of get stuck to the bottom of the pot. And we're going to have some scraping action. We'll show you some of that a little later on. Right now, we need to chop up these onions, get them in our pot with our pork chops. So you remember, we've showed you this before many times. We had our onion, we split it down the root in, kept the root intact, peeled back the first couple layers, and then nothing fancy. We're not cutting across this, and no, straight down. We want to get it as uniform as possible, and then across. And again, as uniform as we can. Just like that, okay? There's really no need to chop back across and back across and back across unless you want minced onions. If you want minced onions, you knock yourself out. Just keep running your knife across them over and over. One more. Keep those fingers tucked in. That's called a claw technique. Keep them tucked in. Don't let your thumb slide underneath and feed because you're going to nip it. Make sure your knife is sharp. All right, handy dandy pastry. This is a pastry blade or a pastry knife, but I use it as a spatula. Right in our pot. Okay, so there's some grease in there. There's a fair amount of oil in there from the pork chops, and that's absolutely fine. I can remove that later if I think it's too much, but for right now, it's going to help me a lot. Grab my spoon right here, distribute those onions, and again, just like the pork chops, I'm going to let them sit. I don't want to mess around with them too much. I want to let them, the onions are going to release their water, and then that needs to evaporate, and then the sugars are going to come out, and then they're going to start to brown after that. Garlic. Garlic's really simple. Crush it. Take the peeling off. I already took the peeling off of this. Same thing. And you just, however fine you want it. I've cooked gravies where I'll just put whole pods of garlic in there, and I've eaten them, and they're fantastic. But the more you chop garlic, the more it releases a chemical called allicin. It's not spelled like Allison, but it sounds like Allison. And that chemical is what gives garlic its unique flavor and spiciness. And the more you do this, the more allicin is released and the stronger the garlic gets. However, the longer garlic cooks in a heated and wet environment, the more it dissipates the strength of it. So I'd rather not bite into a huge piece of garlic, or a lot of people wouldn't. It doesn't bother me, but it's a nice little chop. If you want it minced, mince it. If you don't like that. Put it in my little plate, and I'm going to introduce it later. I don't want to put the garlic in right now because it's going to brown too quickly, and I don't want that. Garlic is full of sugar, full of starches. It's going to brown almost immediately. Mushrooms. Not a traditional addition to a pork gravy, but I like them. And some people do use them. More for beef, but I like them. Regular old white button mushrooms. And they say white button mushrooms don't taste like anything. Yeah, they do. They taste like white button mushrooms, and they taste really good too. They have a really earthy flavor. And for something like a gravy that has a lot of deep browning in it, this is a fantastic compliment. Okay? So let's check on our onions. They're coming along just fine. Matt, you kick Charlie? Old Basset Hound Charlie, he's always in the way because he smells food. So yeah, here we go. If you can see that beautiful fond on the bottom of the pot. Look on the spoon right there. Look at that. They call that the crud. That's awesome. And look, while you're right here, let's take a look at our potatoes. Grab another little spoon. See, kind of looks like soup right now, but that's okay. It's doing exactly what I wanted to do. Those potatoes are already starting to soften. They've only been in there for 5 to 7 minutes. I want them to break down, and those starches are going to absorb that water. I'll probably have to add more as time goes on. But for right now, nice. I'm on about a medium, right at a medium fire. And I'm going to just let them sit there and percolate. I got to watch them every now and again, stir them. The ones on the bottom are going to want to stick. Stir them, and when they start to break down and get really thick, you're going to have to adjust your fire down and really start to stir and scrape the bottom of that pot. And that browning is what's part of where all the flavor comes in. We're going to add our sausage to the potatoes as soon as they're starting to break down and they absorb some of that water. Then we're going to add our sausage. The sausage is going to release wonderful smoke flavor and incredible fat, which we love. So come on back. We've got one more segment. We're going to talk more. We're going to work more on our gravy, get our potatoes where we want them, and then we might have to taste it. I don't know. We'll see. See you in a couple minutes. Come on back, guys. Welcome back to From the Bayou to the World. Guys, look, I have mostly empty cutting board right here because everything's on the stove. So listen, so I mentioned you let those potatoes sit in all a little while, you add some water, and you let them start to steam. And it's going to kind of look a little soupy. I think we got show you a little bit of that. Get in there with your spoon and start chopping them up as soon as they start to soften. So as they soften like that, I know I pronounced the T in soften just now, but that's okay. As they soften like that, when you chop them up, it exposes more of that starch, and then it It'll soak up that water and get thicker and thicker and thicker. All of that heat's going to get captured and continue to break down those potatoes, exposing those starches. And they'll start to stick to the bottom, what you want, and you're going to scrape and scrape and scrape. And if you look, you see on the spoon that buildup. That's called the crud or the creamy or whatever you want to call it. That's the Maillard reaction. That's what you want. But you're not real far from a burn at that point. So you have to be careful not to let it burn. Keep turning it over, adjust your fire down if you have to, no problem. Keep the lid on. Or if it's too wet, take the lid off and that'll evaporate. Then we had our pork chops. You saw that we browned our pork chops, took them out. We had this beautiful fond on the bottom. We introduced our onions and our mushrooms, and we just let them sit there, release their water. The water evaporated, and then they started to brown and brown and brown. And you can see the footage right there. Absolutely beautiful. Now, you will never get a pork gravy as dark as a beef gravy just because of the different species of animal that it is. But that's a really, that pork gravy is going to always be a bronzy color, and that's exactly what you want. Deglaze with a little bit of white wine because I like it. If you don't, just use water. That's fine. You can use vegetable stock, chicken stock, whatever you want, really, pork stock. And then you introduce the pork chops back in there, cover it, put it on a nice simmer, and in about 25, 30 minutes, they're going to be ready to go for that thickness. The thicker the pork chops are, the longer it's going to take, obviously. And then don't forget about our old friend, the pressure cooker. So once you brown and deglaze, you could put that in the pressure cooker in 20 minutes flat, you're eating. So we had our smoked sausage, and I want to talk to you about that. Normally, I would put smoked sausage in with my pork chop gravy, but I didn't this time because I'm putting it in with my potatoes. So I don't need the replication. I don't need all that sausage. So I have it in with the potatoes, and I'm going to serve the pork chops and gravy over. So that's why, but if I'm doing rice, the sausage goes in with the pork chops. Last break, and when you come back, we're going to have some plating for you, and it's going to be time to take a little bite. I think it's going to be lovely, but we'll see you in a couple minutes. Welcome back to From the Bayou to the World. Look at this. We made it. Here it is. Smothered pork chops, and here is the surprise in the third pot. Sweet potatoes. Do the same thing to sweet potatoes that we described earlier for just regular russet or red potatoes. You will be amazed at how good they taste. Absolutely one of my favorites. So we did smothered everything tonight. Smothered pork chops, smothered potatoes. Look at the color of this gravy, this bronzy, beautiful, gorgeous pork gravy. These nice pork chops falling off the bone, absolutely tender. Some beautiful smothered potatoes. We put green onions in it. We got mushrooms in our gravy. What a fantastic meal. So you don't always have to do rice. Or you could eat the potatoes and sausage on their own. Great, fantastic Cajun dish, Creole dish. I want to thank Gilbert's Greatest Foods, makers of Louisiana Love, for this, sponsoring this episode and every episode of From the Bayou to the World. And Charlie, you approve? Charlie approves. Charlie approves. Let's take a bite. Charlie might have snuck one earlier. Let's see. Come back and join us next time. The coffee's always on and the door ain't never locked. We'll see you soon. Oh my, is that good.